Doctor Who Story by Story. The Web Planet Review. Just the facts. The Web Planet is the name of a 6-part Doctor Who story broadcast as the 5th story of the show's second season from the 13th of February to the 20th of March 1965. It was the second season to star William Hartnell as the Doctor, accompanied by his companions Ian Chesterton and Barbara Wright, played by William Russell and Jacqueline Hill in their second seasons in the roles, and new teenage companion Vicky, played by Maureen O'Brien in her first season. The serial was written by Australian writer Bill Strawn, who also worked on shows such as Ivanhoe, The Avengers, Paul Temple and The Saint, and whose unused Third Doctor story was released by Big Finish as a part of their Lost Stories range in 2013, and directed by Richard Martin, who has previously directed part of the original Dalek story and episode 1 of The Edge of Destruction the previous season, the Dalek invasion of Earth earlier in season 2, and would go on to direct The Chase later in the same season. The serial was produced by Verity Lambert in her sophomore season and script edited by Dennis Spooner, who had assumed the role earlier in the season. Incidental music for The Web Planet was stock music from Les Structures Sonores. Plot. A strange and powerful force drags the TARDIS down onto the world of Vortis, and cannot leave. Attempting to discover the source of this power, the Doctor, Ian, Barbara and Vicky find themselves in the center of a war between the Menoptera, a race of butterfly men, and the giant insect-like Zarbi, a mindless and formerly harmless part of the planet's fauna that has become enthralled by a malevolent entity known as the Animus. Guest cast. The guest cast for this story includes Rosalind De Winter as Vrestin, De Winter being a choreographer initially hired to create the strange speech patterns and movements of the Menoptera, Catherine Fleming as the voice of the Animus, and perhaps most notably was the television debut by Martin Jarvis, unrecognizable as Helio. Jarvis went on to become a massively well-known actor on British and American television, appearing in such shows as Francis Durbridge Presents, The Forsyte Saga, the comedy series Rings on Their Fingers, Murder, She Wrote and Stargate Atlantis, and would return to Doctor Who twice, in the season 11 Jon Pertwee story Invasion of the Dinosaurs in 1974, and the season 22 Colin Baker story Vengeance on Voros in 1985. Trivia. Bill Strawn was inspired to write the story by a childhood memory of watching insects fighting. The Web Planet was the most ambitious story of the Hartnell era and is the only Doctor Who story in the entire history of the series in which the only recognizably human characters are the Doctor and his companions. The working titles of the story were The Webbed Planet and The Zarbi. The Web Planet was the first Doctor Who story ever to be given its own individual on-screen trailer. Director Richard Martin placed a distorting lens on the camera, giving Vortis a strange, smeary appearance on screen. The Web Planet was wiped by the BBC in the early 70s as part of the notorious archive purge of the time, but was rediscovered in full in the late 70s, by which time the policy had been reversed. The serial was novelized by original author Bill Strawn in 1965, only the second Doctor Who novelization ever published and the first to be written by its original scriptwriter. The serial was released on video in a double pack in 1990 and one DVD in 2005, the year also seeing the story included in the release of an audiobook collector's tin called Doctor Who Travels in Space and Time, which was read by William Russell. Reaction. The Web Planet was an enormous success on television, gaining ratings from between 11.5 and 13.5 million viewers throughout all 6 weeks. The first episode's rating of 13.5 million was the highest rating achieved by the program for the entirety of the 1960s. Despite this enormous success, however, The Web Planet is not hugely popular with Doctor Who fans. While the story has some supporters, even being named as one of the top 10 most underrated stories of Doctor Who by Den of Geek, the serial is widely derided for having aged badly, with the ambition outstripping the execution, and being very boring. What I think. I first saw this story as a kid back in the day and, like many fans, was not impressed. In fact, I was unable to even sit through the whole thing back then and agreed with the general consensus that the story was a silly bore. However, my opinion has changed considerably since then. The DVD releases were considerably superior to the video releases, and the black and white stories benefited the most from the restoration of quality in the picture and sound. In the late 2000s I also decided for the first time to do a marathon of the Hartnell era, and during this time not only did my appreciation for the era as a whole skyrocket, but so too did my enjoyment of this story. I actually really rather like The Web Planet now. It is long, and it does require a massive suspension of disbelief, but the story is so strange and so weird and surreal that it has a kind of hypnotic effect on me these days, and I find it very easy to become sucked into its strange atmosphere. It certainly helps a great deal that the regular ensemble of the First Doctor, Ian, Barbara and Vicky, is absolutely superb, and indeed one of my very favourite TARDIS teams in the entire series. I am unashamed to be one of the champions of this sadly underrated serial, and I am more than happy to award it a strong B+.